3 months ago, this high-tech aquarium was completely overgrown. A giant water lily had blocked the light and buried the layout, but the ecosystem was still alive. Today, I am rebuilding it from the roots up. Under all that chaos, the aquarium was biologically stable. The fish were healthy, the shrimp were breathing, and the filter was doing its job. So, I waited instead of rushing it. But the water lily kept spreading and its huge leaves blocked almost all the light below. The high-tech plants were slowly losing the fight. To save the layout, I had to remove the biggest plant in the tank without destroying the ecosystem around. Cutting the leaves was the easy part, and just look at their size, they were enormous. This plant is beautiful, but it had completely outgrown this aquascape. It would be much more suitable for a natural biotope aquarium. The real challenge was hidden under the substrate. Its roots had spread through almost the entire back of the tank. I pulled carefully, because one bad move could disrupt everything around it. But this plant did not want to leave. The roots were incredibly strong, and every pull released more debris into the water. Finally, after a long struggle, it came free, and the root system was even bigger than I expected. I saved the plant instead of throwing it away. It will continue growing in my puffer aquarium, where its wild shape will fit much better. Removing the lily revealed the real condition of the tank. Roots, loose plants, and old growth were mixed everywhere. I separated the healthy high-tech plants so I could use them again later. The hardscape still had potential, but the layout needed a serious reset. I cleaned the glass, unplugged the filter, and added more soil to the back. That extra height creates depth and gives the stem plants a strong base. Before rebuilding the layout, here is the ecosystem I was trying to protect. This is how the CO2 enters the aquarium. And this old betta is still one of the best calmest fish in the tank. The shrimp was never stopped working, they clean the plants, search through the substrate and reproduce almost everywhere. Pandagara, young Congo tetras and several snail species also share this space. Every corner has something feeding, cleaning or hiding. The tank looked messy, but it was far from lifeless. The floating plants were another success that created another problem. These are Phlantis phlantis red, and under strong light they will grow beautifully, but they covered so much of the surface that the plants below were left in the shadow. So I moved them another aquarium. This species responds best to strong light, balanced nutrition and CO2. Without a strong setup, the growth becomes slower and the red color is much harder to maintain. Now the rebuild could finally begin. I trimmed the healthy stem plants and replanted their strongest tops. That is one of the most useful things about planting aquariums. Many stem plants can be cut, replanted and grow again. The older stems may also produce new shots if they are still healthy. But planting a few stems is not enough. If you want a dense natural group, they need to be placed close together, so the layout grows into one full shape. I planted them one by one, checking the height and directions as I went. It was slower, but for the first time, the aquarium was beginning to look intentional again. This little Otocinclus was already helping with algae. Later I may add a few more. Next came the red plants. They had stretched upward while searching for light beneath the lily leaves. This is Rotala red, and under the right conditions its color can become intense. Before replanting, I gently shook every group to make sure no shrimps were trapped inside. But one plant was hiding something much bigger. My betta had turned it into a bed. What are you doing in here? Betta fish love resting on leaves, and he had clearly chosen his favorite spot. Sorry buddy, the bedroom renovation was not optional. After trimming, I had enough Rotala to rebuild the entire background. The deeper soil made each stem much easier to plant. For this kind of aquascape, a shallow substrate can make the job unnecessarily difficult. Rotala may survive without CO2 under strong light, but it often stays greener. With CO2, good nutrition and strong light, the red tones become much more visible. I planted the stems as a tight group. Once they grow taller, I can trim them low again and make the background even denser. This rabbit snail has lived here for about a year. The species normally prefers harder, mineral-rich water, so it may not suit every aquarium. While removing extra moss, I found several young shrimp hidden inside. They were tiny, but I managed to film them up close. Then I adjusted dragon stone to improve the balance of the layout. The moss growing over it has formed a shape, almost like a miniature tree. I still do not know the exact species, but with CO2 it grows extremely well. After the final adjustment, I changed some water and gave the aquarium time to set. The foreground still looked empty, so I began with parvula. This was my first time using it in this aquarium. A deep substrate makes carpet plants much easier to place. You can plant them quite low, as long as a few leaves remain visible. Next, I added Cuba, in very small portions. It looks insignificant at first, but given enough time, it can spread across the foreground. The only problem is patience. Cuba grows slowly, and filling an open area can take months. The Cuba and parvula may eventually mix together, so I later may decide to keep only one. For a different texture, I also planted Replanting mini in the center. It stays more compact and helps connect the foreground to the later plants behind it. The aquarium still looked rough, but foundation of the new layout was finally complete. I also installed a surface skimmer to collect floating leaves and keep the surface cleaner. Without it, I would have removed debris by hand almost every day. At this stage, the aquarium was still recovering, but the animals were already exploring the new layout. The fish rarely stopped moving even after hours of filming. Shrimps surged through the fresh planting. Snails cleaned the hardscape, and the Congo tetras moved through the open water. The ramshorn snails are here on purpose. A few weeks later, the first real transformation appeared. The tank was not finished, but the plants had started to claim their space. The shrimp continued cleaned every corner, and the conchlotetras began showing strong colors. Parula had spread much farther than I expected. Repansmini was filling the center, and even Cuba has started to grow again. Those tiny pearls on the leaves are oxygen bubbles. The plants are using CO2 and releasing oxygen into the water. Some pieces were pulled loose by the fish, but enough survived to continue spreading. For the first time, I could clearly see the aquarium I had imagined. Then I found the smallest surprise in the tank. Baby shrimps were moving through the new growth, already feeding like the adults. But one resident had a become problem. This large snail kept climbing over the fresh plants and pulling them from the soil. It was not doing on the purpose, but the layout was still too fragile, so I moved to another aquarium. One month later, this was the result. The moss had wrapped around the stone like a miniature underwater tree. Pandagara moved constantly across the hardscape, cleaning every surface it could reach. Dragonstones, moss, and stem plants no longer looked like separate pieces. They had grown into the layout. Rotala red was covered in oxygen bubbles, and the entire aquarium felt active. Shrimp moved between the leaves, while ramshorn snails worked like tiny gardeners. And the conchlotetras had finally begun to show their real colors. They still have more growing to do, but the mix of bubble, red and green already changes with every angle. 3 months earlier, this tank was buried under one giant plant. Now it had become the underwater world I wanted to build. A high aquarium never stays finished for long. From this point on, regular trimming and small adjustment will keep the layout balanced. Fertilizer also has to match the plants and the water. When that balance is wrong, leaves might melt, colors might fade, and stems might grow weak. I change around 10% of the water each week and use reverse osmosis water for this setup. Then, I adjust the fertilizer dose based on how the plants respond. And somehow, After all that rebuilding, the Betta returned the exact same sleeping spot. Something in this aquarium never changed. Now, I want to hear what you will change. Would you keep both carpet plants or remove one as they spread? The Congo tetras are still developing, so I will film them again when their colors become stronger. This layout will also continue changing. Plants will grow, some species may be moved, and eventually I may rebuild the aquarium again. So, if you want to follow the next stage, subscribe to the channel and tell me your favorite part of this transformation in the comments. This aquarium was never truly dead. It was simply hiding beneath the overgrowth. Now the light, plants and animals are working together again. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next aquarium adventure.